So, I had a really bad night the other night. I made a mistake. I was supposed to do my homework, writing a lesson for a TA position that I'm applying for at my college so that I can get a job and, afford to eat. But instead, I got drunk and watched the final season of Stranger Things.
Stop it. Get some help.
And boy, was that a mistake, because it was bad.
I thought I was pretty damn clear when I said I didn't want to see you in that shirt.
Yeah, well, you also told me to stop screwing your mom, and that didn't stop me, did it?
Like, really bad.
What is it about your presence that brings out their inner Neanderthal?
So now, instead of doing my homework like I'm supposed to, I'm going to sit here and get drunk and rant on the internet about my thoughts on Stranger Things, because like the writing of this show, my life choices are also bad.
For today's video, we did a Washington apple scaled up to a full-size drink. First is 2 ounces of Canadian, or in our case, Irish whiskey, as that's what we had on hand. Second, 2 ounces of apple butter. 3, we finish with 2 ounces of cranberry juice. We chose this drink because it's red, fitting the theme, and Ricky loves apples.
If I had said that Stranger Things is bad in 2016, I probably would have been drawn and quartered. And I also would have been wrong. Stranger Things isn't bad in 2016. It's not really a controversial opinion to say that the quality of this show has kind of pulled a Game of Thrones and drastically decreased in the last few years.
I feel like my life started that day we found you in the woods, and I've loved you every day since.
And there's a lot of theories as to the hows and whys of it all, whether it's waiting too long in between seasons, bad acting, or bad story planning, just like Game of Thrones. And just like Game of Thrones, all of these things are true. But there's one area of the show that I really don't think enough people have talked about that really highlights how bad the writing is of this season. I'm going to show you some clips of this show that highlight what I mean, and I want you to tell me if you can see what I'm seeing.
Hops now in the upside down, traveling at what I hope to be a gentle 30 miles an hour, which will allow
You and Harrington to follow along in the right side up. And when it's close enough and the radio tower is poking through one of the rifts, bam! Elle makes her move, she does her meditation thingy, enters Vecna's sick mind, and ambushes him.
Mrs. Byers and Miss Robin. We tried to save the others, but that didn't work, so now I'm here, and I thought I couldn't trust anyone. But then I started FaceTiming Mr. Woods' speech, and I was like, she definitely knows he's bullshit.
So, Vecna took out those soldiers, so it should be a lot easier to get into the Mac.
No, they're gonna have reinforcements by now.
I can break through a plate. We get Will close to the hive mind. Once he is, he jacks back in. Only this time he doesn't go after a demo. He goes after Vecna.
Just remember, try and keep the telemetry signal within -60 and -70 dB. Easy peasy. In your face, dickhead. And then, stopping the spell, halting the worlds from moving.
How do I talk about this?
Well, there's this world. Under ours?
Under the plates, the upside down. Yeah, it's just like Hawkins, only way suckier.
So I followed you into the woods, and obviously I was right on the money, so can I come with you guys?
Okay, so am I drunk, or was all of that, super confusing? Who am I kidding? Of course I'm drunk. I'm Jewish, and this is, only my first drink of the night. But is it just me, or is the dialogue here just so convoluted and complicated? I have watched every episode of every season of this show, and even with that said, I'm still having trouble keeping up with all of the things that they're saying. The last season of this show has been nothing but whoosh moments for streamers to react to. And then when they're not giving us whoosh moments, it's 90% exposition where they're planning some super complicated plan, repeating things that we've already seen, or needlessly telling us what's happening in the footage that we are already watching. It's all exposition. The way any piece of media handles its exposition is the biggest indicator of good or bad writing. Exposition is almost always necessary at some point in any story.
To control all others. One ring to rule them all.
But the hard part about exposition is that it's a narrative tool, but not necessarily a dramatic one, meaning its biggest purpose is often just informing the audience rather than building tension or eliciting an emotion out of us. But a good writer's magic trick is knowing how to combine both so that the audience doesn't even realize they're being given exposition at all. Because instead of stopping to tell us things or teach us, they push the story forward and they increase the tension. They use their exposition as ammunition.
Yeah, I killed Frank, but I guess I didn't. So what are you mad on me? Nothing. What, attempted murder?
Okay, so remember when I told you that I had the bad night the other night and I got drunk and wrote the script instead of doing my homework? Yeah, that was all exposition, and it was also a total lie. I'm honestly using this to not only rant about my feelings on Stranger Things, but also practice my lesson plan so I can get a job and pay for important things like rent. And I'm also practicing the skill all undergrad teachers must master: teaching while drunk. Like I said before, exposition is when you give your audience whatever information they need to know in order to make the story make sense. Not all exposition is done with dialogue. Some of it is done entirely with visual cues, because sometimes you just want a bitch to be quiet, like the lady in this video. I mean, God, you're just a bimbo on the internet. You're not even a real person anyways. Sorry, I went to a dark place there. Anyways, there is a time and place for giving exposition with visual cues rather than dialogue cues. But no matter what, there are times where your characters are going to have to give exposition verbally. It's just not something that you can ever fully get away from. Because of that, we're just going to focus on verbal exposition for this particular video. There are multiple different reasons that you may need to give an audience information, whether it's the rules of the universe, such as fantasy or speculative fiction, knowing how to use a gadget in science fiction, or even just character or relationship backstory. Stranger Things does all of these, just like my ex did with my friends.
I said, hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right.
Stranger Things, being speculative/science fiction, the terms are kind of interchangeable, does all of these things. It has all of these reasons to give exposition at some point.
Y'all know me. Know how I earn a living. I'll catch this bird for you, but it ain't gonna be easy.
So before knowing how to write exposition, you have to know where to write exposition. One of the worst examples of exposition I've ever seen in film and television is the opening scene of the movie Mission to Mars, which is largely comprised of each character being introduced by their defining trauma before giving us any sort of character to them.
Nobody ever wanted Mars the way you two did. Not even Woody. You two were 12 years training for this thing, hoping for this assignment.
That's all over now.
Part of the reason that the expositional dialogue in this scene feels just so clunky is because it's all front-loaded. They're telling me what these characters' history is before I get a chance to even want to know about it. This is what we call front-loaded exposition, and because it's at the beginning, it actually tends to make audiences less invested in these characters. Why? Because it gives us no tension. Tension is the most vital part in any storytelling. It's what keeps your audience invested in the story and its characters. If you give them an overarching question that you keep refusing to answer, your audience will often keep coming back just to see if you'll eventually let them in on the resolution. Stranger Things used to be a perfect example of tension building in storytelling. It starts off with the mystery of where Will disappeared to, which was the main focus of the first season.
What have you done to my boy? Give me back my...
But it doesn't just stop with that tension in its main story, it continues similarly through its subplots, such as the mystery of Eleven and where she came from, how she developed her powers, and how that's going to intertwine with Will going missing. The lack of information can often keep the audience invested over the long term, whether or not the rest of the series is any good at all. As convoluted as the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise is, the fact that they never fully answer our questions is why we still keep coming back game after game, movie after movie, no matter how poorly written they all are. And before you shit on me, I am a huge Five Nights at Freddy's fan because I am autistic, and therefore of course I am. Plus also, Matthew Lillard is my arch nemesis. Fuck you, Matthew, you know what you did.
I always come back.
I'm just kidding, he's a really nice person and I deserved it. So the question is though, if we know we have to answer these questions with information at some point, where do we place it? In the scene with the most tension. The movie Jaws is a masterclass in tension and story building, and when it comes to exposition, the film has one specific scene where it is basically a 3-page monologue of almost entirely exposition going into Captain Quint's backstory.
Japanese submarine slammed 2 torpedoes into our side, Chief. He was coming back from the island of Tinian to Lady, just delivered the bomb, the Hiroshima bomb.
In almost any other film, this would be an absolute no-no. But because of the way the film has built its tension, the exposition winds up feeling like it adds more tension, giving us answers as to why Quint is the asshole that he is, making us strive that much more to see him survive to the end of the film, and then devastating us further when he tragically doesn't. This is what we call using exposition as ammunition. And here's the thing about this moment. It wouldn't have worked anywhere else in the film. Throughout most of the movie, Quint is shrouded in a sense of aloof or mystery. We don't know why he acts the way he does. We just know that he's the guy who knows he is the only one who can catch and kill this shark.
You go inside the cage. Cage goes in the water. You go in the water. Shark's in the water. Our shark. Farewell and adieu to you fair Spanish ladies.
We also know that he's extremely standoffish to other people and a loner, and he doesn't want to work with anyone else.
I don't want no volunteers. I don't want no mates. There's too many captains on this island. $10,000 for me by myself. For that you get the head, the tail, the whole damn thing.
But in placing the expositional monologue here, long though it may be, and late into the film as it is, we finally get the answers as to why. He knows more about sharks than anyone because he's watched 600 of his comrades be picked off by them one by one.
On Thursday morning, Chief, I bumped into a friend of mine, Herbie Robinson from Cleveland. Baseball player, bosun's mate. Well, he'd been bitten in half below the waist.
Which is also the same reason why he separates himself from other people, to detach himself from that feeling of loss again.
I'll never put on a life jacket again.
And because this moment is sandwiched between two bonding moments between the three men, it increases the tension with the knowledge that should either of these men die, he'd be back in that same space again. We care about him. And we care about them. And thanks to that tension, we want to see them all survive the night. This scene happens really late into the film, giving us a lot of time to build up all that tension and a lot of time for the audience to beg for a reprieve from it. Which is why you should never, ever put the exposition in the beginning of your story, and especially not all at once in some long and boring scroll. Okay, so yeah, there's no actual hard and fast rules, there's only best practices and principles. There is an exception to every rule. Star Wars wouldn't really feel the same without that opening scroll, and because it's thrusting us into a world we are completely unfamiliar with and right in the middle of the story, and you know it's also paying homage to other films before it, they need to give us at least some information in order to understand who these characters are and what they're doing. Sometimes you do gotta start things off with some backstory. Kind of like I did at the beginning of this video. But, and this is a huge but, one almost as big as my ass, there is another reason why the opening scroll of Star Wars is effective in using exposition to build tension. First off, it's dropping us in the middle of a war, making sure that the only information we have is the parts that would both help the story make sense and also feel the most interesting. And second off, it's doing it in a way that other scrolls don't do as successfully. With style.
This town isn't big enough for 2 supervillains.
Oh, you're a villain, all right. Just not a super one.
Yeah? What's the difference?
Presentation!
So, as an autistic person, there is one thing I know to be true. Sometimes you just gotta info dump. Like I do whenever someone brings up Disneyland history in a conversation. By the way, did you know that in 1956, Disneyland became the first... Which is why they never could have frozen Walt Disney's head. What was I saying? Oh, right. Sometimes you just gotta stop and give your audience a lot of information, like when you're in the beginning of a speculative fiction and you need to explain the rules of the universe. But how do you do so in a way that doesn't make your audience's eyes glaze over, kind of like yours are right now with this video, because like my mother, you hate me! Stranger Things being speculative fiction has that disadvantage of needing to stop and explain the rules of the universe, which, again, being a narrative necessity rather than a dramatic one, makes it difficult to keep your audience engaged. But even within speculative fiction, there is a magic little key to helping your audience maintain their interest and also not even realize that they're being exposited to. Let me show you how they do it in one of my favorite speculative fiction movies.
Now, whatever you do, don't push this button, because that will set off the bomb immediately and we'll all be dead. Now, repeat back what I just said.
I am Groot.
Uh-huh.
I am Groot.
That's right.
I am Groot.
No! No, that's the button that will kill everyone!
So what are they doing so effectively in this scene that it makes it feel less like exposition? Well, one magic little thing. They're keeping it funny. You can get away with so much exposition in screenwriting just through doing so with a sense of humor. Because if you keep your audiences laughing and entertained, they forget that they're learning or being told something rather than shown it.
I don't understand. Do you have some sort of skit that we can watch that would be entertaining and informative, but also not too preachy?
Ooh, that is a fine line we're trying to...
Shows like Adam Ruins Everything or Big Mouth are almost entirely educational, and yet most audiences don't even realize they are because the education is given through clever and hysterical writing.
How do you talk to black people?
The same way I talk to white people.
Are you serious? You don't have one of these?
What?
You don't have a code switch?
No.
I mean, even myself and far more popular and more successful YouTubers. We also use this method. We give you the information spliced in between jokes, or, in my experience, just actual anecdotes from my life, which is enough of a joke as it is. And again, in a lot of ways, Stranger Things used to have a good understanding of this. They've covered a lot of exposition using tone and humor previously, especially when it comes to character backstory, which is, again, a form of exposition. But far too much of the exposition in this last season especially has traded in this tool for audience criticism inserts, as if they're trying to anticipate bad faith criticisms from their audience a la CinemaSins. Which is also not a problem that is exclusive to Stranger Things. As a CinemaSins fan, I could write an entire video essay just on that channel alone and how, while it being entertaining, it's also been a net negative to media literacy and film criticism as a whole. But that's exposition for another video. This isn't to say that having audience insert conversations is always a bad thing or done in bad faith. Like I said earlier, there are no hard and fast rules to everything. Sometimes, when explaining things, it helps to have an audience insert character there to ask questions that some of us bimbos are too afraid to ask out loud out of fear of looking dumb. Who am I kidding? I always look dumb because I am dumb. I am nothing if not hot and stupid. And here to explain some of the best ways to use an audience insert asking questions, guest star John Mulaney.
I love Ice-T on SVU. He is fantastic. He's awesome. What's so great about him is that he's been with the SVU for 11 years now. But he still treats every case like it's his first in terms of total confusion. Sometimes they'll be in the middle of an investigation and Ice-T will be like, "Yo, you telling me this dude gets off on little girls with pigtails?" It's like, yeah, Ice. He's a pedophile. You work in the sex crimes division.
While it is hilarious exactly how little of his own job Detective Tutuola seems to understand even 20 years into it, it's extremely helpful in a show that can't rely on humor to get away with large amounts of exposition due to the serious nature of its subject matter.
Well, look at me, I just know stuff.
It's helpful because, despite what true crime girlies seem to believe,
the criminal justice system
is extremely complicated and ever-evolving. And sure, they could just say, "as you all know," and re-explain it to each other in the audience. But that would not only be lazy and bad writing, but it's also extremely unrealistic. If they all know the same information, why would they keep stopping to explain it all. This is also why so many pilot episodes of TV shows have a new person joining whatever workplace drama that serves as the setting for the show.
Hopefully if you follow my lead, you can avoid some of the mistakes I've made here.
Hello, John.
Like that one.
Otherwise known as a fish out of water.
Go home, take a paper bag, and cut some eye holes out of it. Put it over your head, get undressed, and look at yourself in the mirror. Really evaluate where your strengths and weaknesses are, and be honest. I always try to be honest. Good for you. Now try.
Because if you have a new character who is unfamiliar to the environment, you have a good reason to explain the environment to your audience without them realizing that it's not for the benefit of the character, it's for the benefit of you. The way Stranger Things handled its exposition this season really didn't help them beat any of those rumors that the writers are being told to write for second screen entertainment. It's like they're expecting their audience to be scrolling on their phones while they watch, so they're giving all this exposition to make sure that you can still understand what is happening without having to look up from your phone. And when you do look up from your phone, they dazzle you with an "oh wow" moment of Elle or Will using their powers and aura farming, which is a term I just learned from the youths, and now that I have used it, it is completely uncool, so maybe writers will stop doing it forever. I'm making you cringe to save you from bad writing in the future.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
So this video was recorded before the series finale and was intended to be uploaded before it premiered, but me being me, my life fell to pieces, and thus here I am posting this after the finale and editing this last bit into it some 24 hours before this video goes live. Don't make bad life choices, kids. Now, the following are just my personal opinions on the strengths and weaknesses of the final season and its finale, and what I personally think would have been better choices from a writing standpoint. However, take all of that with a grain of salt. I am just an MFA student and also a bimbo. Just because I would have done something differently does not mean that the work itself is inherently bad. A lot of people loved this finale, and I genuinely love that it worked for them. Anything that brings you joy and should be celebrated. So starting off with the good stuff that I actually did like. Yes, having Nancy not end up with Steve or Jonathan was a perfect ending for her. And not just because I have always hated Jonathan and Nancy together since Jonathan ain't shit, but also because Nancy's character arc has always been leading up to her own independence without her seeking validation from men like she did in the first several seasons.
Because if I told her the truth, then she'd just throw her dreams out the window to come out here and be with me.
We love a girl growing into herself. That was absolutely a great choice, and her breakup scene with Jonathan was probably one of the best written scenes of the entire season, even though most people didn't seem to get that it was, in fact, a breakup.
Nancy Wheeler, will you not marry me?
11's monologue to Hopper, yeah, not gonna lie, that one hit me right in the daddy issues. All of our characters remembering the people that Vecna took from them and the trauma he caused them, all while Joyce chops his head off with an axe. Yeah, love that. Always here for female rage.
Fuck with the wrong family.
I also really like that the ending is open to interpretation. It's up to the audience to decide whether or not 11 is really alive, and because I'm a sucker for a happy ending, I'm gonna go with that version. Because I'm depressed and can't handle more sadness. And now for the not so good. So, while I think there is a lot of good in this finale, especially in comparison to the earlier episodes of the season, I do still think there are some fundamental problems with it, largely due to the poor writing and foundation of the season's previous episodes and their weaker reliance on exposition instead of visual storytelling. Max's role in getting them back to Camazotz felt a lot weaker than it should have been, largely due to the fact that this season has treated Max more like a side character than anything. We don't see any of her emotional journey, she just tells us about it in the past tense, which sucks because that could have been a great story. Remember when we last left off with her in season 4? She was in a really dark place, still grieving Billy and dealing with her trauma surrounding his death. And then apparently the coma that she's been in for the last 2 years has actually been her stuck inside Henry's mind. All of this would have been absolutely fascinating and compelling emotional storylines if they had shown them. It could have even just been one episode on her learning that she's in Henry's mind, learning about his emotions, dealing with hers, and learning how to survive in that world. And it would have been great, especially given Sadie Sink is one of the most talented actors in the entire show.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Billy. Love your shitty little sister.
But instead, we were told about all of this, not shown, making her role when they returned to Camazotz not having the impact that it could have had. We never even hear that she tried to witness this play enough to know what was happening in it. We never saw anything that she learned about Joyce and Hopper, or their relationship to Henry, because also, why was Henry in the same high school as Joyce and Hopper? Did that lead to anything? Like, there was no moment where Joyce and Hopper were like, hey, Henry, that guy that we met in high school, that's Vecna? Oh, wow. Like, did he go after Will specifically because Will was Joyce's son? That just went nowhere. And again, it also contributed to making Max's storyline weaker, because we could have seen her discovering this and having it change the way she sees Henry, but no, we're just told that it happens. We don't get to see it, like all of the interesting bits in this show. Unlike a lot of the fans, I've never had an issue with Callie coming back, but I have had a consistent issue with the way that they handled it, because they handled it the same way as Max's storyline this season. Instead of being given the effort of emotional storytelling, showing us through flashbacks little by little everything that happened to her, the same way they did with Elle in season 1, they just narrate over it like she's telling Eleven a bedtime story. You know, just the kinds about death and trauma and how your very existence is going to destroy the entire world and you should end it. Just like the kinds my sisters used to tell to me before I went to sleep.
Sister.
We didn't get to experience any of her emotions with her. We were just told that they happened, which then went on to make her death far less impactful than it should have been. We should be crying with Eleven, but we're not, because we didn't get a chance to feel Callie's pain. We were only told about it. Also, Callie is one of many POC characters in this final season that completely got shafted. Luke had nowhere to go, nothing to do. They barely pretended he existed at all. And Erica, where did Erica go in the finale? Come on, she was the best character in the entire show.
You can't spell America without Erica.
If Erica had been the one in charge of the gang, Vecna would have died in 5 minutes.
And I told you to eat your damn pie.
I have had a consistently unpopular opinion with the fanbase that Hopper actually should have died in season 3 and stayed dead in season 4. And it's not that I think character death is the only way to push a story forward, but I do think that death fake-outs or resurrections like these automatically lower the stakes in every story, simply because if death has no actual weight to it, there are very little real permanent consequences for a character's action, which leaves us no tension, no wondering who is going to survive. But even more than that, I just feel like they gave Hopper very little to do emotionally ever since the end of season 3.
And when life hurts you, because it will, remember the hurt. The hurt is good. It means you're out of that cave.
Him coming to grips with the loss of his first daughter was already handled throughout the first 3 seasons, and by the end of that 3rd season, it felt like a good place, with him giving his own life to allow his new daughter to live. But instead they bring him back and they want to do that same storyline again, which doesn't make it stronger, it makes it weaker. And Hopper's monologue about wanting Elle to live and grow only to then be undermined with her killing herself anyways, it falls flat, especially compared to the fact that no one really seems to mourn Eleven when she's gone. I mean, Hopper's first daughter has been dead for over 10 years at this point, and he's still a mess about that. But Eleven? No, he's fine. Him and Joyce, they get to get married. And Mike seems to be the only one legitimately traumatized by Eleven dying. I mean, Dustin mourned Eddie longer than the rest of them mourned Eleven, and Eddie was only in season 4. They've been close to 11 for 6 years at this point. Overall, I do think the finale is good, at least in comparison to how weak this season was. But when you look at the thing as a whole, with how weak the rest of this season is, the ending just feels okay at best. There's just too much here that didn't pay off the way they wanted it to because they never allowed us to go on the emotional journey they intended. Instead, we just got an entire season of planning and hearing people talk about their tragic backstories instead of letting us feel the tragedy itself. This could have been good, but it just wasn't. I miss the days when Stranger Things was good, when it had actual reasons to exposition dump beyond, oh hey, you're on your phone right now, so we don't want you to be confused when the music swells to indicate that you're supposed to look up and watch our wow moment. I miss when I didn't even want to check my phone because I was just so invested in the writing, in the mystery, in not being spoon-fed information only to have it be unsatisfying and boring when it is. I miss the days when watching my favorite shows didn't feel like homework. And even though this video started off as homework, I really hope it didn't feel like it. Because if it did, I'm out of a job and will likely starve to death. Unless, you hit the like button and subscribe so that I can be monetized. Wait, where are you going?